Hi, this is Phil again. I just have a few more points to make on our teaching of basic communication skills. And the first thing to say is the importance of timekeeping. When you're invited to speak somewhere, there will be an expected time frame for your message. It's important that you find that out and you do your best to keep within that time. If you ask about the time, it's not been unusual that the answer I've received is something like, just as the Lord leads, or whatever you feel is on your heart. And if ever that is the answer you get, then you don't believe that or don't take that. Keep pressing and find out what the normal expected time is. Each church or group have their own culture. The message may be a 40-minute message, a 20-minute message, a 30-minute message, an hour message. And the point is to ask, what is the normal thing? What is normal? Because people learn that. And if it goes on longer, often people can get uncomfortable. They've made plans to do other things. They can get restless and even switch off. And of course, we don't want that. In some cultures, of course, the danger is the message can be too short. And that is something that you need to know as well. What is the particular normal time for the message? And then keep to that. Now, there is a danger of speakers going over time. And the question is why? And sometimes it can be because of the adrenaline level. Speakers forget the time and they're trying to say too much. They feel they have to say everything that they have planned, and therefore they go over time. It can be because speakers are very emotional about the subject and they feel that this is the most important thing in the whole world and it is the most important thing for the people. And often that is not the case. And in fact, going over time can take away from the message, and we certainly don't want that. As I've said, people can want to say too much. Another can be that people don't have a system to help them stop. So you need to be thinking about that and how you can time your message well. You need to be prepared to adjust your message. Because it's not unusual that in these days the worship time in a meeting can be given more priority than the speaking in some places. And if the worship goes over time, then it may be that if people are expecting the meeting to end at a certain time, you have to cut your message down. And when that happens, then there needs to be a flexibility. And it's not unusual that as I see a worship time going on beyond the expected time, and I know that's going to affect me as a speaker, I'm thinking, how can I shorten the message? How can I keep the main point, get that main point across still, but do it in a shorter time? This is something that a skill that you need to develop. And so just be aware that if you speak longer than expected, there is a chance that people will switch off and be waiting for you to finish, and that is a great shame. We want people to hear what we're saying and finish the message really well to a good conclusion. Now, how can you ensure good timing? One way is to use a friend. I do know that in some meetings that are tightly controlled, there's actually someone on the front row with a card. It may say something like 10 minutes left, or 5 minutes left, or 2 minutes left, or stop now. You know, there's this kind of really strong control, but that is unusual. And it may be you have a friend at the back that can wave their watch at you. Maybe you can find an app that counts backwards that you can have on your phone. Or sometimes I've just jotted down the finishing time. Most places have a clock that's in the great place for the preacher to see, and you can use that to help you keep track of time. So timekeeping is really important. Another big area, and an area that I've struggled with, especially in the early days of my involvement with the School of Biblical Studies, is the area of fear and nervousness in public speaking. I used to go to the classroom when I was training to be an SBS leader, and I remember as I was walking from my house to the classroom, praying that prayer earnestly, "Oh God, please would you open up this ground and swallow me up." That was how I was feeling as I was walking to the class. So this has been a real struggle for me, and it still is at different times, depending on the circumstances and the audience. But there's two things to note about nervousness, and that is it's pretty universal. I'm sure there's a few people who are never troubled by this, but the vast majority of people struggle in the area of public speaking and nervousness. And the second is it can be a good thing, because it can increase the adrenaline and give us energy and give us focus. And so there is a positive side to it. Of course, the negative, if it becomes too much, it can rob, and that's the thing that we want to avoid. The simple answer to overcoming fear in public speaking is to keep speaking, is to keep doing it. And that, of course, is the way you overcome most fears. You face them and you confront them and do the very thing that you're feeling fearful of. And this is certainly true with public speaking. The big answer is to keep doing it. Now, there are some practical things that can help you, and one of those is that you know your material well. It can be that you want to even practice your message. I've done this at times. I've stood up in the office and preached to the desks, or walked in the woods and preached to the trees. This can be really helpful for you to actually preach your message. This has the value, like writing a manuscript, has the value of you thinking through the words that you're going to use. So know your material well and practice your presentation. That can help. Give special attention to the first few minutes. Think about what you want to say and even write it out and try to memorize it. For many, it's getting over that first few minutes into the message that can be really important. Do have an easy to understand outline. I've mentioned this already. Have your outline clearly on one side of the paper, clearly marked, each page numbered. These things can really help you to have confidence that your message is there, you're reminded of it. These things are really helpful. Do use your own delivery style. Beware of trying to copy other people. It was said that after Billy Graham had some very notable, very powerful crusades in England a number of years back, that all around the country there were preachers that would pick up their Bible and in those immortalized words of Billy Graham say, "The Bible says," and they would even say it with an American accent. The anointing isn't in copying other people's style, but use your own delivery style. Anticipate potential problems. What this is doing is looking at the place where you're going to speak, looking at the microphone setup. Are there steps that you can trip up as you walk to the podium? Is the podium movable? Just be prepared. Spend plenty of time getting any visual aids sorted out. getting your computer connected, if you're using that. These things can be really important. So try to anticipate any problems that you might have. And manage your appearance. We've spoken about dress codes, but be comfortable in your dress appropriately, so that kind of thing doesn't hinder, cause awkwardness, and increase any nervousness that you might have. Above all, stand on God's promise to empower your speech. God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And love your audience. Ask God to give you a love for the people you're ministering to and communicating with. And as you do that, so you become concerned about them rather than yourself. Your attention is away from yourself and on them, and that the message you have is important for them, and the life of your message will come through. So just a few thoughts there on ways to handle nervousness and fear in public speaking. Just a few words about using a translator. This is because this is so common with us in Youth with a Mission, as we are so international. If possible, meet with your translator beforehand so that they can get used to hearing you speak and to your accent and voice. If you are speaking on something that's a bit technical, think through words that they may need to know so that they can find the appropriate equivalent beforehand. Sometimes if you're speaking on inductive Bible study, there's technical words like inductive and deductive and different things. And it may be they need to do a bit of work to find out the best way to translate that. Firstly, they need to understand the concept themselves, and understanding that clearly can help them. If not, they can be choosing words which are really not so helpful. If this hasn't been done already, do introduce a translator to the audience. Now, the chances are the audience know the translator better than you, but if not, it's important that they know who the translator is, and in the whole translation process, do take charge. If your audience doesn't know your language, then that translator is absolutely vital to any success in communication. And what we do, of course, is honour them. I have never done it. I'm not able to be a translator, but I would imagine it's a challenge to be thinking all the time, listening and speaking with these things through. So take charge. When you are speaking, do not speak to the translator. You have eye contact with the audience. And as you're listening, if the translator falters, say the sentence again using different words. And if it's a particular word that they are stumbling over, give a synonym so that they're able to have another option. And find out from the translator whether they want you to speak in short sentences or long sentences. And it depends on the language. Some languages, for them to translate well, they need to know the whole thing you're saying, the whole thought. Other languages, it can be done with shorter sentences, and the translator would need to explain what they need. Try to not have a time lag between you and the translator. As if you've done this before, you know you can get into a really good rhythm with your translator. The translator, if this is what you're doing, should mirror the speaker in gestures. It's not so helpful for the translator just to sit down and translate, but for them to be active even as you are. And a really big one is let the translator finish what they're saying. So often with the excitement and passion, a preacher can start talking before the translator has finished. And that is really unhelpful, especially for those dependent on the translator to understand what's being said. What the translator's doing is vital. Give them the respect to let them finish what they're saying before you speak again. Finally, I want to talk about the use of a microphone. And this is really important because some people become very awkward at the thought of using a microphone. They push it away as though it's an enemy, and it becomes a thing of embarrassment. But we need to settle in our minds that a microphone is a friend. What it does is helps people hear what you're saying. That's the whole point of it. And if it's used well, it can be less strain on your voice, bring clarity. But the problem, of course, is it does need electricity. Now, in most places, that's not a problem. But of course, in some teaching situations, it's not possible. And so what is needed is just a really loud voice. Microphones can be a blessing, but they can also have a negative effect, be a bit negative. Microphones can tie you down, especially if they're bolted to the podium on a stand. That means you're not able to have natural movement that can help your presentation. You really need to do a sound check so that the sound engineers are able to get the volume right. And it can be easy to misuse a handheld mic, as I've already said, especially if it has a cable. Speakers can play with the cord, and this is true, as I've mentioned, with a lapel mic, with a wire to the battery or a wire to the recorder. So the best way to use a microphone is to hold it just maybe 3 inches or so from the mouth. But the important thing is that whatever you decide, whether it's close or not, you keep it the same distance. That will keep the sound volume about right. Otherwise, it can be lost. Do not hold the mic down with 2 hands on your lap. Some people almost have the microphone pointing to their chest. That's not the way to use a mic. That's not helpful. What you do is you lift it up and hold it right in front of your mouth. So the most unfortunate scenario is a fixed mic. That means that you're not able to move. Another is it fixed in a microphone stand, and that can be similar, but at least if it's in a stand, there's not so much between you and the audience. So that is better than it being fixed to a podium. The handheld mic is good, but even better a lapel mic, because then you have both hands free. And the best, of course, is a lapel wireless mic, and then you're completely free of cables other than the one that is leading to the battery case. And so mics can be really useful. We treat them as a friend, but we do need to use them well. Don't play with the cables, and if possible, have a situation that you're either holding the mic or it's clipped to you, so you have the full amount of freedom.